Welcome to the Black Entrepreneur Experience podcast, inside the business, buzz, and brilliance of Black entrepreneurs. Here is your host, Dr. Frances Richards.
What happens in Vegas goes all over the world on Black Entrepreneur Experience, episode number 45. Thank you for joining us for Black Entrepreneur Experience. This is where we shine the light on the most successful Black entrepreneurs in the world. I'm your host, Dr. Frances Richards, and today I am so deeply honored to have Ronald Bennett Williamson. He is the creative director at Evelyn Brawner Couture, a clothing line for the confident and sophisticated woman. You know, Ronald Bennett, I have given our audience a really brief snippet of your bio. I want to first welcome you to the Black Entrepreneurial Show. Thank you. But why don't you fill in the gap and share with our audience what you would like them to know about you and your company?
First of all, I want to thank you, Dr. Frances, for having me. I really do appreciate this opportunity. My name is Ronald Bennett Williamson. I am the creative director and owner of Evelyn Brawner Couture. Evelyn Brawner was started in 2015 out of frustration with not seeing Black fashion designers represented, and also my lifelong dream of being a fashion designer. Personally, I'm 25 years old. I've been designing since I was in high school, and I'm very excited to be able to share my passion and my gift through this medium.
So Ronald Bennett, tell us, you are a really young millennium. Thank you so much for joining us. And so tell us about that journey. You knew in high school that you wanted to be in fashion. What was that epiphany? What was that aha moment that you knew that this was the business and the industry for you?
So it actually happened before high school. I was about 6 or 7 years old, and I started drawing dresses. I used to stack triangles, invert triangles on top of one another, and those would become my dresses when I drew. And then I would also make dresses and accessories out of napkins for my sister's dolls. So it was sort of second nature for me. I saw clothing, and I was so interested and fascinated by the way it came in so many different varieties that I wanted to be a part of that. And so I started drawing, and I started making doll clothes and things like that, just to sort of satisfy my curiosity. And then as I grew up, I learned how to draw. I learned how to, color theory. I took every art class that was offered to me through my school experience, and really just focused on what I needed in order to go to college for fashion design and then make this into my career.
So you actually went to college in fashion design, and did you have a double major, or was it all focusing on fashion design?
I had a double major and a minor. I had a double major in fashion design and Spanish language, and I had a minor in entrepreneurship.
And so tell us about why, being such a young man, why the Spanish language? Tell us about that.
So Spanish language was something that I fell in love with as a student in school here in Milwaukee, and it opened up so many opportunities for me to grow as a person, and then to experience different cultures and, again, different colors and different flavors, and the way people dressed and the way that they interacted with one another. And it pulled so strongly on my heart that I couldn't let it go. So being bilingual has definitely opened a lot of doors in business for me as well.
So Ronald Bennett, why don't you tell us, how do you define success?
Success is being able to go to bed every day knowing that I've done my best work. That's success to me. It's not about the amount of money or necessarily the visibility. I understand that we now live in an age where you can get on the computer, you can get on Instagram, you can get on your phone, and there's a certain projection of what success looks like. And I personally just don't subscribe to that. I think that it's really about the piece that I have that says I've used every one of my gifts today.
So share with our audience, Ronald Bennett, what is a daily or weekly habit that you do consistently that has given you the greatest success?
Oh, definitely sewing. Definitely. And I did not learn to sew until I went to college, but it was definitely sewing every week, making sure that I stay sharp because I do custom work. I have to be able to say, okay, I know how to do this, and that way I stay on a deadline. It's definitely sewing, if not 5 days a week, then at least 3.
So what is one valuable lesson that you wish you knew before starting your business?
Before starting my business, I wish I had researched more about the fashion industry. I knew things from peripherally from, my fashion classes, and that's to get you through. But I wish that I had really sat down and done more research on how I wanted to approach things, because in the beginning it was very shaky. I was basically, making one dress and then I'd never be able to recreate it. And I needed to know how to do that. And so I think definitely research first would have been my biggest thing.
So talk to someone in the audience, Ronald Bennett, who is interested in fashion design, and making that their entrance into New York. And we haven't even talked about that. And I want you to just give our audience an in-depth glimpse of what you've experienced in terms of how far have you've gone, in fashion. And, New York is like the mecca of fashion, one of them, Paris being another. So someone that is interested in fashion, what advice would you tell them? You said research, but go a little deeper. What should they do to ensure greater success, or at least the magnitude of success that you've experienced?
Definitely know what it is you want to do in fashion. There's so many different avenues. You can be a buyer. You can be we don't call it window dressing anymore. We call it merchandising. You can be an accessories designer. You can be, a graphic artist who is just taking whatever comes to mind, whatever sort of design that they have, and putting it into apparel or accessories or, things of that nature. You have to know what it is you want to do, because otherwise you're grasping at straws. Okay, like for myself, I do evening gowns and bridal. I focused that way because I knew those were my strengths. And then I did as much research in that vein. What sort of fabrics do I need to know how to use? What sort of beading? Are there different techniques that I need to know as someone who sews to know so that I have the best product out there? And I would also say it's definitely essential. It does not matter if you're a merchandiser or a buyer or a graphic designer. You need to know how to sew, because let's say you send your product elsewhere to be created and it comes back to you and it doesn't look correct. At least at that point, you can say, all right, I know that this should be a double stitch on silk because otherwise it's going to pull, and they only single stitched it. So I need to talk to my sample maker and my supplier and make sure that that's rectified, because otherwise there are people that will try to take advantage of you. But definitely I spent a lot of time eventually researching and knowing designers and knowing fabrics and knowing color theory. And that brought me to New York. That definitely, especially for someone my age, a lot of people in the fashion programs and schools sort of don't do the work in that respect. They don't know who Saint Laurent is. They don't know who Stephen Burrows is. They just know about what they see on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook. And a knowledge of the history of fashion is very, very helpful and goes a very long way.
So how did you decide to niche down your market with fashion being so vast and so huge? How did you narrow it down to evening gowns and bridal?
I've always been fascinated by wedding gowns. I think that it's very important it's just an important industry. If it's the day that we say you're supposed to be your most beautiful and all eyes are supposed to be on you, and it's a representation of you as a person and the love you have for the other person that you're marrying, then there needs to be, it's a serious labor of love. And I feel like if you don't love bridal, then you can't really be a part of it. So it's something that bridal has always been one of my big passions. And evening wear it's just so much fun. Women are so much more fun to work with, in my opinion, because they're chameleons. They like to be able to have, a flirty cocktail dress. They may sometimes need something that's a little bit more demure. And then on the other hand, they can go on a completely different tangent and wear something that may be out of their comfort zone every once in a while. And I just think that's the beauty and fascination in dressing.
So what's working well now, Ronald Bennett, in your business?
Facebook. Facebook is one of my greatest allies. I have a Facebook page for Evelyn Brawner. And I mean, it's like weekly, the numbers just go up and they see the photos of things that I've done and some of the videos from fashion shows. And people, I mean, it just spreads like wildfire. It absolutely spreads, which is really, really great. I was very conscious about not becoming what we call an Instagram fashion designer, where, you can buy a piece for $20 or $30 online, but then, everybody who follows that account has the same outfit. And I was very much against selling my garments online in that respect. But I've gotten responses from people from as far as California to Texas. I've done shows in Raleigh. I just had a bride contact me from Nashville, Tennessee. So I'm on my way to Nashville, Tennessee next year. So Facebook has really, really been helpful for me.
So since we're talking on the vein of technology, what is your must-have technology besides Facebook? Is there a technology platform or a piece or tool of technology that you use that's a must-have for managing your business?
Well, I suppose it would be the modern sewing machine that is computerized and has a number of different stitches. And then I have a serger that helps me work very quickly and efficiently. And then outside of that, my cell phone. My cell phone is my everything, because I'm able to connect through apps. I'm able to, I said Facebook. There's also another app that's really, really fantastic. It's called Inigo, and it is a digital business card. And you can put all of your information in your email. You can put photos of your work. And so, like, if you're like myself and you don't like to carry a lot of things on you, you can, when you meet people and they say, do you have a business card? You can say, well, no, but I can send you all my information through this app, and it sends them a text message or an email. And it's really quite fantastic.
Yes, and you introduced me to that, and I started using it. So thank you so much for that, because I have all your contact information when we connected face to face. So it is an amazing app. So thanks for sharing that with the audience.
Mm-hmm.
So Ronald Bennett, who are your top 2 influencers in life, and what lessons do they teach you?
Oh my. So I have to sort of bend the rules here. My grandmothers are the people that I have named Evelyn Brawner for. My late grandmother, Evelyn Williamson, was the first lady of a church here in Milwaukee, and she was the type of woman who could put on makeup without looking in the mirror. She was that confident and that sure of herself. And she encouraged me to be true to myself and be true to my passion, and make sure that I wasn't letting that go. And also my grandmother, Mildred Brawner Pollard, who worked at the art museum here in Milwaukee and exposed me to many different forms of art and made sure that I was learning that there was more than one way to express yourself. There was more than what I saw at school or what I watched on television, really, really opening the world to me through art and through travel. And the other person is my dad. My dad is whose name is also Ronald. He is a shrewd businessman and had more than one business going at a time, and managed that while managing my sister and myself, the two unruliest children, and really showed me how to make a business work and how it could be successful and what it took, what man hours you needed to have, more than just creating my product, but also marketing my product and then taking care of my financial responsibilities as well.
So have you ever worked a regular job, or you always been an entrepreneur?
I have worked a regular job. I do work a regular job now. And I think that it's important to do that because it makes me appreciate my creative freedom that much more. And I think it's important to do that because I am young. I'm 25. Evelyn Brawner is something that I'm nurturing now so that in the future it can be my only job, because it is my true passion. So I don't mind working full time now to reap the benefits later.
So if you want to share, is your current position that you're working outside of your business, is it related to fashion? Is it something totally opposite of that?
It's something actually kind of opposite. It's Spanish language.
Okay. You're another passion of yours. Very
Yes.
good. Very good. So, Ronald Bennett, tell us, I know you said you're 25 years old, but talk to a younger you. What advice would you give to a younger you?
Oh, definitely not to get discouraged. Definitely. I think that I let myself get beat down because of my surroundings in college, and because I felt that so many other people were doing, half of the work and reaping the benefits that I wanted. And I just had to learn to run my own race. So I think that would definitely be my advice, is to run your own race.
And so what do you see the direction of your business? Where do you see the direction of your business within the next 2 years?
Within the next 2 years, we are going to be carried in stores. We're going to be in boutiques in the greater Milwaukee and Chicago areas. We're working on a sample line now to be marketed out, and hopefully by 2020 we'll have our own storefront.
And do you have a location for that?
Not yet, because of going back and forth to New York and Milwaukee. It's sort of deciding. I do love Milwaukee, and it's provided me with so many opportunities. But it can be difficult to market yourself in evening wear and in bridal in a Midwestern town that's sort of always been about being casual and hardworking rather than ornamental, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And that was going to be parlayed my next question. The city that you launched your business, and I know you said you're going in between Milwaukee and New York, and you kind of mentioned that. Is that the best area to launch your business, or hindsight 2020, you should have launched in another area? or another city?
Hindsight is 2020, definitely. I probably should have waited a year until I got to New York. But when I did get to New York, at least I had an established business that helped me to keep myself there for the time that I was there. So I think that as difficult as it can be in this Midwestern setting, I've been incredibly fortunate with having the customers that I've had and their sort of unwavering support.
So you hear a lot of individuals talk about starting businesses, and one of the biggest challenges is capital. Mm-hmm. So talk to our audience about, what capital did you use to start your business, and what capital do you use to run your business? Did you bootstrap it? Did you get investors? Did you crowdfund to start the business? Talk to us about that.
I bootstrapped. I was in college, and I just decided, outside of the $100 that my father gave me for the website, I bootstrapped. I did it basically myself that first year, and it was a loss for the first year. And then the second year, the profit margin was slim, but it was a profit margin. And now I'm on track to do about 4 times of what I did that first year that I profited. But I did it myself, and it was important to me to do it that way because I felt that I had something to prove, not so much to other people, not so much to other business owners, but more to myself that, this is something that I've groomed myself for. And so I want it bad enough, so I'll do what's necessary.
So do you operate the business as a solo entrepreneur, or do you have a team that works with you?
I have a fantastic team of people. One, his name is Fred. Fred does all of my social media. He coordinates photo shoots for us as far as the photographer and how we want it to look. I basically walk onto set and it's all done, which is fantastic. And then I work with a really great photographer who travels the country, but he's here in Milwaukee. His name is Christpher. And Chris and I, we've known each other since we were in high school. And he sort of knows my style and knows my taste. And I don't even have to ask him. He's pretty much, it's already done. But as far as the design process, everything is done by me. I'm looking now to have a couple of seamstresses in addition to myself working on it, especially with the samples coming out in October, because the workload, as my popularity has increased also, 4 times over. Definitely. I've found that now I need to know when to delegate. I think it was important in the beginning to have it to myself, and now that it's something that I'm comfortable with, to start delegating that.
So when you're looking for your seamstress or individuals to help on the design piece when you decide to delegate, are you doing all that basically in the USA, or are you outsourcing any of them out of the country?
I'm doing it all in the States. And it's important to me to stay in the States as an African American I've seen what it's like in New York, and I know that the quality is what I want. It's so easy to sort of say, okay, well, I'll send this dress to China, and I'll have 20 of them made, but the quality is awful, and the fabrics that they've used are awful. And I can't justify giving that sort of product to the people that patronize me.
So let's switch gears, Ronald Bennett. Let's talk about risk and or failure. What is the worst moment in business, and what was your takeaway?
Oh, my worst moment in business was actually recently. I had a custom design that I was doing for a client, and we had agreed on the price, we had agreed on the fabrics, and I bought the fabrics, and then I went out of town. I came back into town, and the client was sort of blowing my phone up in a way, always calling me late in the evening, 12, 1 in the morning, asking about the garment. And it got to the point where as it seemed as though the customer really wasn't interested in me making the garment as much as they were they wanted a replica of another designer that they couldn't get to. And so at that point, I just made the decision that I would give back their deposit, which I had no problem with. It seemed fair. I made sure that they, understood the terms of the contract about the fabric purchasing and all of that. And then the client took the design that I had done, the sketches, to another fashion designer in town and had it made. And it was a nightmare because I saw my dress on social media, and it was not made by me, which is very important. It's very important as a fashion designer to protect your intellectual property. And so I basically, from that point on, I had to put a stipulation in my contract when I do custom work that you will see the sketch. You are not, allowed to keep it. I don't have a problem so much with you taking a picture of it, that sort of thing. But it has to be known that it is my intellectual property once I, have it notarized and get that out into the world. So it was kind of a nightmare.
Well, that's a really good lesson that you're sharing in reference to protecting yourself and trademarking and intellectual property, and that is very profound. So yeah, thanks for that. Mm-hmm. So what is your goals for the future with your brand and your business?
My goal is to have a Evelyn Brawner boutique, whether that be in New York or Chicago, LA, Las Vegas. I'd like to stay in the States, but I would gladly go to Europe. And really be able to provide people with the experience of having custom clothing and knowing the joy of dressing beautifully and knowing the joy of having something created especially for you. I think now there's a little bit of a vagueness, and it's very impersonal in fashion at this moment, which seems like an oxymoron because fashion is the first way that we express ourselves. So it's very important to me to have people have a personal connection with what they're wearing rather than it just being out of necessity. So I'd really like to connect with my customers on that level in a boutique setting.
So what I want to ask you, Ronald Bennett, is I'm just thinking about what you're saying, and I'm thinking about if a client comes to you and they've never had a custom design piece done and it's an evening wear, how do you get to connecting with that person? Are you asking them to bring you like some pictures of what they've seen that they like, or just take us on that journey for someone who's never experienced working with a creative director in terms of putting a piece together specifically for them?
Sure. So first thing I do when we meet is I ask them to tell me about themselves and their style. Tell me about what is comfortable for them and what is not. For example, there are some women who, after a certain age or a certain point in life, would rather that their arms be covered up. And there are some women that don't. So oftentimes when I take into account making an evening gown, I ask, would you like your arms covered? Are there things about your body that you'd like to showcase? Are there things about your body that you'd like to hide? And how have you gone about that in the past? How would you like for me to go about that? And then we do go through some of my past designs, and I show them some things that I've done that way. Oftentimes, I discourage against using photos of celebrities or things that you've seen on the runway because it can give a false impression to the buyer. It can give them the impression that, Ronald Bennett is going to reproduce this $40,000 Elisab couture gown. No, I'm a designer, so I'm designing something for you. We can take elements, but I'm not going to recreate that. So once we go through that process, I do a series of sketches, depending on how large your event is or what you're doing. For some brides, I've done 3 sketches. For other, I've done 10, just because they weren't quite sure about what they wanted to do. And then I give them the time to go through those and see what they like and what they don't. And we can tweak things because it is the sketching stage. And after that, I pick fabrics. I send samples of the fabrics to them, or they come to me and we talk about them. Once that's done, our fabrics are purchased, and I make the mock-up of your evening gown or your wedding dress in muslin, making the pattern by myself, doing the muslin so that once we cut into the fabric, usually doing evening gowns and bridal, you're using fabrics that are not, that are more expensive. You're using stuff that is going to be $30, $40, $50 a yard. And you have to be absolutely sure when you cut. You have to have the precision of a sniper, really. So that's why we do the first fitting in muslin. We do a second fitting once the garment has been constructed. And then your third fitting is your final one, and that's when you have everything all together. So that's sort of the process. It's very, very involved, and you have to really want it. It's not something that the customer can be a passive party in.
So talk to the person in our audience and they want to start a business, but they're fearful. What advice would you offer them?
They want to start a business, just do it. I think that oftentimes we limit ourselves by saying what we can and can't do before we even give ourselves permission to do it. Give yourself permission to step out on your ideas and your faith and make it happen. And if it works, then it's fantastic. And if it doesn't, they say failure or fail. First attempt in learning. Everybody has to try something first in order to get to the next step. I would just really like to see people trust their instincts. If they're good at it and they want to make a go of it, trust your instincts. Just do it.
And so talk to our audience about what book would you recommend to them and why?
So the last book I read was Goodbye to Berlin by Christpher Isherwood, who actually, he wrote that book, and that book is the work that Cabaret is based off of. So you sort of see the backstory from that film, which I love, and I just saw a couple weeks ago. And it was really fascinating to me to see this sort of microcosm of culture and what was going on in that tumultuous time, and how it sort of reflects on what's going on today in our country and in the world. So I really, really recommend Goodbye to Berlin.
So, Ronald Bennett, if you had to do it all over again, would you stick to the industry or change to a totally different industry, and why?
I would stick to this industry. I would. It's given me so much joy and so much pleasure, and I've seen some of my childhood goals. I can't say life goals because I'm young, but I've seen some of my childhood goals realized, and that is so fulfilling and amazing to me.
So what would make you stop?
Oh, I don't know. I don't think that anything would make me stop. I don't think it's too ingrained in me. It's too much a part of who I am.
And you had mentioned in your top influencers, it was your dad, and he's a Black entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. So Did you want to share with the audience any other Black entrepreneurs that have inspired you to keep going?
Yeah, sure. I mean, Stephen Burrows, definitely the fashion designer from New York, who in the 70s was, an upstart fashion designer, basically, and suddenly was thrust onto the international stage because he was a part of the Battle of Versailles with Oscar de la Renta and Anne Klein, oh man, I can't remember the others, but he's definitely been influential because he's not only an entrepreneur, he's an innovator. He created a certain type of sewing technique that we now see all over the place. It's called the lettuce leaf hem. And you see it now, I mean, from Kohl's department store all the way to Balenciaga at Fashion Week. It's something that was so revolutionary then that people still use it to this day. And I think another would be actually another fashion designer in Milwaukee. His name is Larry Andrew, and he's fantastic. He's so organized and he's so methodical, and he's been one of my mentors as well, showing me how he has moved through some of his challenges in this market, and also being a custom designer. We're able to sort of commiserate with one another and be able to help each other in that way.
So how do you balance or blend your personal life, family life with your business?
Well, it's all sort of the same thing for me at this point, because I'm single. My family are my parents, my grandparents, and my sister. So, and with us sort of being a little scattered, we stay in contact, but it's not that I have to manage a household, which is nice. I have a very close-knit group of friends who have supported me in this endeavor and will show up to any fashion show and will come over to my space and help me steam if I need to, or help me iron if something's not going quite right. So it's all sort of interwoven for me, and I don't think that it will, until maybe I'm married and have children, or I'm balancing 3 boutiques, will it be separate?
Okay. So, Ronald Bennett, if you conducted this interview, what is the one question that you wish I would have asked you? And I'd like you to answer that question.
Oh my. Why did I start so young? I suppose that would be my question. And even though I touched on it a bit before, it was out of a sense of urgency. I had all of these ideas, and my whole life has been telling me, oh, you're so talented. Oh, you're so talented. And then this was my chance to put it into practice, to see if the people outside of those that I love saw that talent and saw that passion and emotion.
And so what parting piece of advice would you offer our audience today?
Be yourself. Everybody else is taken. Know your worth. Definitely.
I like that. So now we're going to move into the part of our interview. It's called the Fun Facts Lightning Round. And I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and I'd like you to answer them very quickly. If there's something you desire not to answer, feel free to say pass. Are you ready for the lightning round?
Yes, I'm ready.
So the last movie you saw?
Game of Thrones. Not a movie, but that's okay.
You relax doing what?
Walking.
Your favorite singer or rapper?
Patti LaBelle.
Your favorite dance song?
Touch and Go.
What food you eat every week, no matter what?
Pizza, definitely.
And your favorite month?
August.
Because that's your birthday, and we are going to say in advance, happy birthday. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So in closing, Ronald Bennett, we just want to thank you so much for spending time with us, with you going coast to coast and being this amazing creative director. And what is the best way for our audience to connect with you and to support your business?
Definitely via social media. We're on Instagram at Evelyn Brawner Couture. That's BRAWNER. We're on Facebook at www.facebook.com/Evelyn Brawner Couture. And we're on Twitter at Evelyn Brawner. So that's the best way to connect with me, especially all over the country right now. So, yeah.
And I have to ask, I know that we said this on the top end, how you named your business. Your grandparents, did they both get the opportunity? I don't know if they're living or not living, and you can expound on that. Did they get the opportunity, your grandmothers, to see you in action and to name your business prior to anything, if they're still living or not living? And I'll let you share that.
My grandmother, Evelyn Williamson, passed away when I was 13. And so unfortunately, she was not able to see me realize this dream. But naming it Evelyn Brawner was definitely an homage to her in that respect. And my grandmother, Mildred Pollard, her maiden name is Brawner. She was an only child, and she was orphaned young. Both her parents passed away by the time she was 16. And so it was a way to keep that name going. It's also my uncle's middle name, but it was a way to keep that name going and to honor her for her contribution to what I have now. And thankfully, she was able to see my launching fashion show at the Milwaukee Art Museum 3 years ago, the place that she worked as a docent, and the place that her friends who were docents saw me grow and become a fashion designer. So it was a really, really amazing full circle moment for me and for her. And I treasure my relationship with her, and she sometimes gives her opinions on the designs. And I think that's fair because I used her name. So
thank you for sharing. Absolutely. So again, we at Black Entrepreneur Experience want to thank you so much for just giving us some pearls of wisdom and sharing just your journey and giving us that inspiration to forge ahead, because you are doing exactly that. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Francis. I appreciate it.
That's a wrap.
Thank you for listening and subscribing to Black Entrepreneur Experience. We would love for you to leave a review and rating on iTunes and share with your friends. For show notes and more episodes, go to www.beepodcast.com. Join us next Wednesday, and remember, green is the new black. So keep your bank accounts and your business in the black.